Hi, it's Anna here. Welcome back to my channel. So today is video number 3 of my inner work video series, and we will be discussing the importance of self-love. And you might think that this is trivial and a no-brainer, but this is such an important point that I wanted to make sure that I did a specific video about it. It really deserved its own videos because I want to make sure that I bring this point home with you. Because here is the thing that I've realized in my own journey. Self-love is the foundation to inner work. It is basically the self-container you are building for yourself internally whilst healing. Because you can't shame, punish, or criticize your way into inner peace, right? And I know that it feels like such a common sense thing to say, but the actuality of it is that we're not doing it. We're not being kind to ourselves. And if you don't have this foundation of self-love, basically whilst going through your healing and inner work journey, you will be shooting yourself in the foot. It's basically driving whilst having one foot on the gas pedal and braking at the same time. And the reason why I'm making it such an important point, and it's something that I'm really passionate about, is that I've done it. I used to do this to myself, and I've seen it with so many people. We all do it. So when I started my inner work journey, I really started with inner child healing because, like most of you, you don't really realize that you need to heal until you have children, right? Once I started meditating and really paying attention to my thoughts, I really realized how tough I was being on myself. I was talking to myself in a way that I would never dare talking to anyone about. And it really took me by surprise because I'm actually really compassionate, and I'm always the one telling my friends, stop being so hard on yourself, it's okay, you're doing everything you can. But I didn't really realize how abusive I was talking to myself internally. I never really paid attention to that inner critic. The expectations I had on myself were just ridiculous, to be honest. You may relate to this, but basically every time I would get triggered by my kids and yell at them, I'd have this voice in my head saying, what's wrong with you? How can you yell at your kids like that? You know better than this. Why are you doing this? You're gonna damage them so bad. You're the adult. You should know better. You should be ashamed of yourself. And it was these things in my head, like how are you supposed to work through your triggers and heal when you have this going on in your head in a loop? That's what I mean, and it probably sounds familiar to you. It's shooting yourself in the foot whilst healing. That's why it might seem to you that you're going on a hamster wheel and you're making one step forward and 5 steps backwards at the same time. Like you seem to be stuck and not being able to move forward. So I did a video on cognitive distortions last year. And I will put a link to the video up here, and I will also put a link in the description of this video because I don't want to repeat myself. But in that video, I go into a lot of details and give examples of the sorts of negative thought patterns that we all have and how to reframe those. So I really recommend you start there before we dive into emotions, which I'll be discussing next week. And one thing that I want to say is that the healing journey is tough, but when you're actually doing the healing journey whilst parenting multiple kids, it's fucked. So I want to be real with this because I want you to understand that what you are doing is amazing and you deserve a medal for it. So showing yourself a lot of grace, compassion, and patience in the process is paramount. Because not many people are willing to go there and do it, and you are doing it, and that's all that matters. And what I've realized is that self-love gives you this life force energy from within. It's this power and fuel from within. It's basically the only way you really refuel your cup. It's the foundation of that. So if you think about it, you can do an exercise where imagine, thinking like telling yourself, you're bad. How can you behave this way? You should know better. Why are you yelling at your kids? When you say all these things, you can feel in your body this tension. It's like you're feeling stuck and tense, and it's actually making you feel worse. You can feel it. You feel this energy. But if you change that to, I'm doing my best, I'm trying hard every day, I'll do better tomorrow, can you feel that it's like opening everything for you, like inside? It's like this peace, the energy is flowing again. So that's what I mean. You know, we often talk about self-care, and it's definitely one side of self-love, but the core of self-love is an energy on the inside. So let's take a look at some examples of what I think self-love looks like in my own experience. So one aspect of self-love is definitely positive self-talk, and that looks like, you know, being kind to yourself, paying attention to that inner critic, like I said, and reframing unhealthy thoughts about yourself, and actually speaking love to yourself. I do that a lot. I don't need to do it as much because I've reframed my thoughts so much that I've got new neural pathways now, and I've been able to really work on that. But at the beginning, every time I used to be triggered, I used to speak a lot of love to myself to really reframe this inner critic. So I used to be saying to myself, you're safe, you are loved, you're doing okay, you're doing your best. So really speaking so much love to yourself. And it's basically speaking to yourself like you would speak to your best friend, right? Another big part of self-love is forgiveness, and this is a big one. And the main part of this is actually forgiving yourself. It's forgiving yourself every time you don't act right, but it's also forgiving yourself for not starting the healing journey earlier, because you might be thinking that. Forgiving yourself for staying in a toxic relationship for too long, or not being able to stand up for yourself enough. There are so many things that we tell ourselves that we should be somewhere else that we're not currently. And here is the thing I want for you to really understand. You are exactly where you need to be. Exactly. You are starting to try to heal, and that's just perfect. It's a slow process, and you will probably make one step forward and two steps back for a while, and that's totally okay. You are ready and willing to move forward now, and that's all that matters. Not many people are doing it. And I will be talking a lot more about forgiveness in its own video further down in the Inner Work series, because it's also a very important part of the inner work journey. So another part of self-love is self-care. And as I've mentioned before, self-love isn't just self-care, it's only a part of it. And I know that there's so much emphasis on self-care, especially for mothers out there. And sure, like a massage is nice. But to me, self-care is more like a band-aid approach. It's basically a surface level approach to allow us to survive in between, right? Whereas self-love is much deeper. It's getting to the root cause and making our well-being sustainable and consistent. Because in my opinion and in my personal experience, it's not what I do that matters, it's the energy that I bring. So for me personally, it's not really about the massage. It doesn't do much for me. What really works for me is spending time in nature, really connecting to the earth and connecting to myself in a really loving way and being fully present with myself. I get so much out of that than actually going and doing something. You know, I get so much out of just being love and loving myself than going and doing something because I've been told that self-care is all that matters. Do you know what I mean? Another part of self-love, in my opinion, and that's a big one, is speaking up and being assertive. I will be doing a video about anger because I feel really passionate about this, but we've been taught to shut up, basically, way too much. And I was going to say especially women, but actually I don't agree with that. I think it affects both men and women equally. And, you know, we've been taught to people please and be agreeable and keep the peace and all of that. And it's doing so much damage internally, actually. So we need to learn to speak up. Our needs matter. We need to be able to voice that. And when we don't like something, we need to be able to voice it as well. So that's a huge part of self-love. Another one is listening to yourself. So making sure that you listen to yourself and your feelings to understand, you know, when your needs are met and when your needs aren't met. Really prioritizing your needs because you do matter as much as anyone else. A big part of that is also getting clear on your values and what you want from life. And it also means asking for help. Like, we're not meant to be doing everything on our own. We were never meant to live this way. So once you start to listen to yourself, you'll understand that you actually need the help, and you need to be able to ask for that help. There's nothing wrong with you in asking for someone to help you. You deserve that. Another huge part of self-love, and that's also a big one. I mean, I feel they're all big, but it's boundaries. And, you know, boundaries looks like not letting others take advantage or abuse you. Because, like I said, you matter as well. You matter as much as anyone else. And it goes for our kids, right? Definitely. So it's very important to put boundaries for our kids. I feel like most of the time when we start yelling at our kids, it's because we haven't actually set that boundary earlier. So, you know, you feel depleted, you need peace and quiet, and you haven't voiced that with your kids. And they start running around and yelling, you know, and making so much noise. And it's starting to, like, you're starting to really feel it, like, piss you off. And it's starting to build and build and build until you can't take it anymore and you start yelling. So it's being able to, like, place that boundary earlier. And there's nothing wrong with telling your kids, guys, I'm feeling so tired, I've got a huge headache. I need you to either play outside or go and play in your room so I can sit here in silence and in peace. There's nothing wrong with that. You deserve that. And it's also boundaries with other people. You know, you don't have to do anything out of obligation. You don't owe anything to anyone. And we haven't been raised that way, so it's a very important perspective shift to make. But a boundary is basically often saying no to someone or something. It's basically that. And, you know, you don't have to go to a family gathering if you don't want to. You don't have to go there, you know, if you are so tired and you've gone to so many gatherings and you just can't take it and you need time for yourself. You don't have to. And especially you don't have to go if you've got, you know, toxic family members that make you feel bad every time you see them. You know, it's so important to spend time around people who support you and build you up, and avoiding people who don't. It's a huge part of self-love, and it's a huge part of this healing journey. And the last one that I have is about being patient with yourself. I mean, it's something that I say, I think, in all my videos, but, you know, when you are going through this healing journey, and especially when you are going through this whilst parenting, it's tough. You need to be patient with yourself, and you need to start noticing the progress and effort that you are making instead of focusing on everything you are still doing wrong. And this might be minute to you, this might be such a small effort and progress at the beginning, but it's still progress. It's a compounding process of those tiny steps and tiny progress that amount to this huge change in you. So remember that, showing yourself so much love and so much grace and compassion whilst you are going through this, just like you would show someone else the same compassion and grace. That's it for today. I really hope that this video is helpful, and next week we'll be discussing the importance of understanding our emotions and how to use our own internal guidance system and how to really strengthen that and use that. All right, wishing you so much love and have a good week. Bye.